Everyone knows that professional CSGO faced something of a mass exodus during the so-called online era. Players were leaving in droves to take up Valorant in an effort to, in some cases, salvage their careers.
Magnum's in the smoke here, 10
Oh my god!
Magnum's got no HP, not like this! Sentinels, they're gonna get the defuse, they've done it! Sentinels are the masters to Reykjavik champions!
Even some old heads made the switch for a chance to not only prove that they still had it, but to take one last shot at a title.
Shadoff's good for one. Eco trades one out. Oh, just narrowly not able to get the second. He still pitching in. He's able to get a second one. Eco, 24 health, running for the fences. Is Chronicle has plenty of health. Chronicle on the tap. He's got to get Pros don't fake. He's got to get it to Hatfield. Eco swings out. He gets 4. He gets the Red Bull clutch.
However, the bulk of these stories are centered around North America. You see, NACS really struggled to make ends meet during this time, so there was this huge incentive for players to give the Riot IP a shot. In fact, in the early stages of competitive Valorant, it seemed like every roster worth watching was composed of former CSGO pros. Now, across the Atlantic, EU Counter-Strike, indestructible as it is, was facing its own set of issues. Tier 1 teams weren't pulling out of the competitive scene, but with spots on top rosters being limited, some veteran players were struggling to find opportunities. And for them, Valorant wasn't just some easy fix to the problem.
I'm aware of the conditions of CS right now and what COVID and the online season is impacting the scene in general. Right now, I'm not closing any doors. That's what I'm saying. I'm not taking decisions. Once again, I have time to think about things, and I have a list of priority I have in my head. And what I'm saying is that Valorant is not my priority right now.
But amidst this torrid, uncertain time for European Counter-Strike, where even the most seasoned strikers had no idea what was in their best interest, there was one household name who did fully commit to the switch. Well, sort of. You see, there's a certain storied French professional whose experiences during the online era were a little different compared to the general confusion and uncertainty most faced. I am of course talking about Nathan NBK Schmitt, the bearded beauty with sweet doughy eyes who just might be the linchpin for French CS.
He's going to be in for a bit of a tight time here. Nicely done. Point blank. Finds one. Gets a second. A third. Looking for it. And he gets the fourth as well. French CS. NBK.
Despite being regarded as his region's so-called kingmaker in CSGO, NBK decided to make the jump to Valorant in an attempt to refresh his competitive career. The thing is, he never actually played it. At least, not for a professional team. NBK spent over 6 months of his life just streaming Valorant. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, he came back to CS and underwent a staggering renaissance.
Looking in towards lobby, contact at door. It's going to be NBK. Dupree shows a shoulder. Great double kill. It is Old Nuke. NBK with a stunning triple.
The question on everybody's mind is, how? How has the natural-born killer been blessed with the craziest instance of what the community has termed the so-called Valorant buff? What did becoming more in tune with his mental health do to change how he views himself as a competitor? And why in God's name was his magnificent return suddenly cut short?
Well, I thought MBK was actually playing much better than what I would have given him credit for. I think he was looking pretty good.
It's very weird. It does show that somewhere along the lines, Mouse kind of f***ed up, because otherwise it doesn't really make that much sense.
Alright, so in order to fully appreciate NBK's storied Counter-Strike career, we need to go back to Global Offensive's oft-memed predecessor, Counter-Strike Source. Now, sure, there were a lot of CSGO pros that got their start in Source, and of course 1.6, but it's important to remember that NBK wasn't just cutting his teeth. He was playing for one of the most successful Source teams of all time, Very Games.
NBK bomb on his back, takes on Shocks as he pushed up, caught him just in time. Going for the bomb plant. It's going to be a safe plant, so it's 11-9 in favor of a Nexus, though. NBK looking to back up, try to find a good spot as he takes down Smiz with a headshot as he peeked up through the brick, and he gets the third one onto Scream.
NBK played alongside other eventual French CS legends such as RPK, Kenny S, Apex, and Shoxy, and together they won over 20 tournaments, cementing themselves as Source's greatest ever team. But, as I'm sure many of you are well aware, the success didn't stop after that. After making the jump to CSGO, Very Games quickly established themselves as a top-tier roster, and NBK's impressive performances throughout 2013 earned him recognition as one of the game's best players.
2-1 now in terms of personnel. Virtus Pro have the advantage. Into the bomb site they go. Nice smoke to cover NBK. They've already gone in for the defuse here, I think, as well. But NBK has got the first one. Can he get the second one here? It's against Guardian. They dance around the box and play a bit of peekaboo. Which way round is it? It's right-hand sided. It's NBK.
Here's the thing, though. While things did look to be heading in a positive direction on the server, the same couldn't be said for Very Games off the server. At the end of 2013, the org announced that it was being dissolved due to financial struggles, which saw NBK join Titan for the better part of 2014. But it was only after he joined Smiths on a project that would become LDLC that he truly began to earn his Kingmaker status.
NBK spotted the ball out, but there's the mad spray, and he drops the ball carrier. Taz is gone. NBK with the double kill in the CZs.
Alongside Shox, Happy, and Kiyoshima, LDLC took CSGO's competitive scene by storm. And at DreamHack Winter 2014, they made history by securing France's first ever CSGO major. After the high of the win, all eyes were back on French CS. LDLC would get picked up by Envious, and the seed that NBK had planted continued to bear fruit in the form of another major title at DreamHack Cluj-Napoca 2015. But the wins themselves didn't carry a lot of weight for NBK, at least not for long. For him, it was about the relationships that these titles had helped him engender.
If you win a major, you're happy for a week, you take it a bit longer, and then you're done, and then you move on to something else and you want to win more. At the end of the day, everything that I've won means nothing. It brought me so much in terms of lifestyle, friends, opportunities, everything, but it doesn't rule what I do on a daily basis.
Come 2017, NBK, Kenny S, and Apex were signed by G2 Esports to form a French super team with Body and Shox. And while the roster did find some early success, it wasn't long before cracks began to form. You see, anyone who's familiar with the French Counter-Strike scene knows that for many, many years, it developed a sort of reputation for internal drama. Players didn't mesh well together, play styles were criticized, and often people were singled out for poor tournament results. It was basically an FPS-driven soap opera fueled by the pettiest of storylines.
CS teams are such a tight group, right? 5 players, a coach, a manager, it's like 7 persons. If you have problems between 2 persons that start getting deep, then the team can easily get screwed.
After getting benched by G2 in June of 2018, NBK was picked up by Vitality later that year. There, he reunited with some familiar faces to build a winning roster around CSGO's most impossibly explosive up-and-comer, ZywOo. And once again, NBK put his regal magic to work.
Only 2 players are left alive for Vitality. They can only trade, but only becomes something very big as NBK gets a 3-man spray down. Only Manise alive in a 1v1. And NBK knows where he is. They know each other's position, but NBK wins it. It's 12-11.
Oh, he's absolutely ready. Look at NBK. Actually gets caught out. He still picks up a double like lightning out of the sky. Comes in with a triple.
For Mousesports, it's back to a 4-on-4, but NBK is still standing by at Mew corner, and he will get free. Will get a form as well.
Over the course of the next year, Vitality provided CSGO fans with moments of brilliance. And while NBK continued to prove that he was very capable of fragging, he retained his passion for team building. Unfortunately, it was that very passion that led NBK to get benched again.
Was that a really, really tough call to make, considering you and MBK actually had to build this team and then get back to that point of being competitive again? Was that a tough decision to make?
Well, obviously, yes. NBK and me have played together for 4 years, I guess, before he got removed from the team. And that wasn't easy to do that. Obviously, it was the team choice and not only mine. We had like some trouble to be agree on many things, on how to build the team and how to getting better.
After his departure from Vitality, NBK had stints with OG and then Double Pony, but despite being a 2-time major winner, he couldn't find a team that offered him a chance to reach the top again.
Yeah, I think I received some offers from different teams, but nothing that was really convinced about joining straight away. Like, it was none of the top tier teams or like teams that had the potential to be among the very best trades. So I just took my time to potentially find the right place, but at that time it didn't come.
But there was another option. A way to start again, remain competitive, and perhaps find the same glory he once did. And that option was Valorant. So on June 29th of 2021, NBK announced that he was making the move.
It is time for a change.
Did it suck to see such a natural-born killer leave Counter-Strike? Of course. But the hope was that he was finally going to get a fresh start. He'd join a tier 1 team, work his magic for the millionth time, and show these Mickey Mouse rosters how you really build a squad. Now, until he could do that, the plan was to take a stab at content creation and prove to everyone that while Valorant may be a different game, he was very much still the same NBK.
Oh, what?
Whatever.
Like Sky
Down you go.
Sky was
One enemy remaining.
Close. 80. Nice. You can revive me, Sage. Thank you.
Sage.
One enemy remaining.
I'll go with Sage.
Last space. Get the ace, guys. Get the ace. Do the ace. Good job.
Fans were waiting with bated breath for NBK to be swooped up by a tier 1 Valorant team. But months went by, and an announcement never came. Former CS pros were selling like hotcakes, so why was a player with such a pedigree still a free agent? Well, as it turns out, it was mostly by design.
For Valorant, it was slightly different. I really wanted to take time at the beginning to just get familiar with the game and playing a lot of solo queue and really having that good basis of a player. Really get there and feel comfortable with the game and be a good player and not just the guy that transitioned and came in with his background. So the offers came a bit later for like interesting and good teams. But yeah, the main point was taking my time and not rushing, getting into a new contract just for the sake of having a contract.
In addition to just wanting to master the basics of Valorant before diving in whole hog, NBK was also looking inward and discovering more about himself both as a person and as a player. And on January 3rd, 2022, he disclosed via Twitter that he'd recently been diagnosed on the autism spectrum. This discovery helped NBK understand his past professional relationships better, but it also gave him insight into how he might develop his future ones.
My place as a player coach and the impact that I could have with the people around me is what's going to be the most affected by it, in the sense that I know my strengths and weaknesses through scientific experiments, if you want, of like people knowing and like research and all of that stuff. When you know what the obstacles are, it's way easier to go around them. But if you walk in the dark and you don't know what's before you, then it's very hard to like anticipate and know how to work on some things and whatnot. And that's kind of the same idea, where by knowing myself better on how I approach certain subjects, my relationships with emotions, with other human beings, it makes it way easier to find ways to trick yourself or to make everything work despite those problems.
While NBK's revelation was met with a torrent of support across the esports community, he gave fans a reason to rejoice when he further announced his return to CSGO.
I have brought many teams to the top, and I'm ready to do it again.
Most of us heaved a giant sigh of relief at this news. I mean, would it have been fun to watch NBK shit on some Overwatch players in Valorant? Sure. But this is the natural-born killer we're talking about. The man belongs in Counter-Strike. This is a guy who was clapping cheeks with the Source Deagle and winning CSGO majors while prodigies like Munacy were still in diapers. CS was his home. But, and this was the question, of course, after such an extended break from Counter-Strike, would even a legend like NBK really be able to come back the same quality of player? It's no secret that Valorant is extremely similar to Counter-Strike. It is a 5v5 defusal attack shooter, every weapon is a dupe, and there's a heavy emphasis on utility, but there are some important differences. For starters, movement is considerably slower in Valorant. You know, barring some obvious exceptions, it feels like agents are wading through molasses with cement blocks for shoes.
Should I stay A or should I back out?
Bro, we're obviously walking. I don't know why you're f***ing doing that.
On top of that, the gunplay feels a lot different. There are no set spray patterns for guns, which ends up being one of the hardest things for CSGO players to overcome.
Oh no. Yeah, he's very used to CS with the crouch spray.
But against all expectations, NBK came back to CSGO with a vengeance, as if he'd somehow been buffed by Valorant. And even though Mouse had brought him in to play a much more structured support role, apparently his time away from Counter-Strike had given him an insatiable thirst for blood.
Gets stuck in, but Fuzz has gone forward, insta-goosed, instantly dead, and there you have it. MBK will close down the round with 3 to his name. It's 3 high explosive grenades available here.
Universe, NBK loses his head, but instead,
he just keeps taking them.
He is going to take him. The Kingmaker beheads another, and 2 more in his crosshairs as the spray connect. Give him to him.
Ozzy's not going to be expecting this, I don't think. He's dead. He is dead. Oh, MBK the savior.
So how did NBK seamlessly transition from streaming a hero shooter to competing in Tier 1 European CS without missing a beat? Like, surely the Valorant buff is just a meme, right?
And so in Valorant, the main thing is you have to have cleaner aim in a way. You can spray less. So maybe there's some truth to that. That then you come back in Counter-Strike and then you have to be cleaner in the way you're aiming. But yeah, I'm not 100% certain about the truth of it. If it's a recurring theme, then it might be truth.
And while it was an obvious bonus for Mouse that NBK was stepping up and filling the fragging void left by Rops, that's not why he'd been recruited. He'd been brought in for his experience, leadership, and vision, something Mouse had sorely been lacking prior to his arrival. Although expectations for NBK, or even Mouse at large, might not have been high from the get-go, fans hoped to see a feisty, fairly competitive roster that had aspirations to grow. And that's exactly what they looked like they were getting. Well, that is, of course, until Mouse announced, shockingly, out of nowhere, right after our interview with NBK, that he was being moved to the bench in favor of an upcoming prospect.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like why he got shafted by this entire announcement. I think Mouse really f***ed up with the wording and generally just with the way that they communicated this. But obviously, like, you brought in NBK for a different reason than for him to be the star, you know? So it's pretty clear that they wanted him to bring in some sort of a leadership. And so for them to come out with this PR where it was something like, we really appreciate JDC's positivity and attitude, and you're like,
Players from across the community chimed in with their 2 cents about this kind of bizarre decision. And the confusion was, in a sense, warranted, as statistically speaking, NBK had been performing above expectation. Mouse claimed it had to do with poor results at Pro League. but they placed 4th in a difficult group and beat major runner-up / super team G2 in the process. So to say that NBK was blindsided by the decision would be an understatement. As of right now, it isn't entirely clear what the rest of 2022 holds for NBK's competitive future. Professional CSGO is a cutthroat business, and sadly, it's affected NBK more than most, despite the fact that he's one of the most influential players his region has ever produced.
If you want to look at it on like a global perspective, I could stop Counter-Strike tomorrow and be very satisfied and have a better career than the 99% of players that are in this game, right? But to me, the main point is to be able to enjoy again what I do on a daily basis.
For now, it looks as though NBK is going to keep his sights set on CSGO and just wait until the opportunity to step into the spotlight presents itself yet again. But if recent form is any indication, the natural-born killer still has plenty left to give.
NBK, get your gun out. Goz does have it out. Crosshair on Crosshair, and NBK makes it count. Woof! 3 kills for the Frenchman.
So how did NBK effortlessly, I can't say this word, effortlessly. It's weird because there's like no words in English that I can't say, but this is the only one. It tops the list. I can't say effortlessly. Not effortless, I'll tell you that much, Matt.